It is sunny and breezy today. Beautiful day. Another project. This one's in the shop again, and it's on the motorhome. Got a little, hopefully I don't think it's a water problem. It's more of a dry rot problem. So back here on the back side of the chair, under the window, this panel underneath the window must have been leaking because it is soft and spongy and dry rot. Get a better view of it. So that section right there, from like the cup holder forward, soft, spongy. So what I'll do is I'll probably pull this chair up and pull the interior trim ring around this window, and then take cup holder off, get my little multi-tool in there, zip tool, cut that panel back, and just see how much damage is in behind there. What I bought is an RV panel. This stuff's real thin, 1/8 inch maybe, if that. And I did buy a roll of peel and stick wallpaper, and it's actually really close to what the paper is that's on here. I mean, it's not identical, but for where it's going, it'll probably be all right. So I got the chair off. That came off pretty easy. 4 bolts, bolting it to that pedestal. Pulled the inside window trim that holds the window in. Some of the screws are a little difficult to get to, like back there, but the trim came off. And what I'm seeing, of course, is some dry rot back there. And what it lines up with is there's a seam right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Right there. There's a seam in the window where the sash came together, and looks real suspicious, like that might be where it's coming from. So I may have to pull this window out and seal up that splice from the outside. But I took my little multi-tool and I made a cut centered on that cup holder. And that'll be the seam for the new panel. And then really what I wanted to find out was just how wet it was down here. I'm not seeing anything wet, which is really good. Yeah, this is all dry. It's just dry rot, which is good. So I'll keep chipping away at it and get it cleaned off, just scrape it off. Not quite sure how to finish the seam back there, but I'll think of something. So as with any water leak, it always ends up being worse than what you think. I was able to get the panel off. There's nothing wet. It's damp down there, but it's not wet. And we just came back from a trip at the beach where it rained, heck, 3 inches on us over the weekend. So if it was going to be wet, it'd be wet. So it's just a little bit damp down there. Not sure. There are those screws. There's a screw there and a screw up above, and they might be leaking also. Those hold the front cap to the sidewall on the outside. But we had some insulation panels. So these 2 pieces here filled in that hole there. And this is the inside. And this is the outside. The outside, it's like a sandwich board. It's got that 1/8 inch board inside and out, and the outside board was just disintegrated. But it's more or less contained right in that general area. The board behind here is pretty decent. Board up front's a little suspect, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get that deep into it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But this board here is glued to the styrofoam really well. Having to do just little strips with my multi-tool. I dive down, flush to the styrofoam, then I make another cut right here and just sort of pry off the panels. So I'll continue that to get off that board and clean up the mess, see if I want to tackle that foam board up front there, and then probably start putting the thing back together after it dries out. So I've gone about as far as I'm going to go on this. I was able to get the rest of this panel off with the multi-tool, and like I said, I had to do it in strips all the way down because it was really stuck well. It was a little odd. I did decide to pull this piece off that was up on this leading edge here, and then I was wondering why did they use 1 inch in this gap right here, and then they had 1.5 inches on either side of it. And I always wondered why it was soft. You could push in on here and it would just flex, and that's probably because the outside board outside of this foam board, well, it was gone, so you could just push it in like that. So what I think I'm going to do is get rid of these 3 pieces and go buy a chunk of 1.5 inch foam board and then fill that space there with the 1.5 inch. I think I have to put an outside 1/8 inch board on it first, then the 1.5 inch insulated board, and then finish it off with the inside trim or inside board. I was able to find in my wood scraps just an 1/8 inch piece of plywood, which is what this stuff really is, and it'll match up real nice, I think, and it's really solid. So I think once we get that infilled with the 1.5 inch styrofoam, get the right glue on it, bond it all, press it together, clamp it together, should work out pretty good. It's a couple days later and a trip to Home Depot, and I found my foam board, not the size I wanted. Only needed a piece that big, and I ended up having to buy a 4x8 sheet. But it was damaged, so they gave it to me half price, and it wasn't that much. It was like $8.50 for this whole sheet, so it's pretty cheap. So I've already patterned out the panel I want. I cut the exterior board that's going to glue to this, but I got to looking at it, and I think I figured out why they used that 1 inch foam board. They needed room for, I think, a 1/2 inch wood backer for the 3 screws that are holding that exterior trim on. That trim is actually got some tension on it because the fiberglass, as it wraps around the motorhome, it's bowing out, so it's got to have some pretty good anchorage. So I think I'm going to go ahead and mortise in 3 little pieces of 1/2 inch plywood into the foam, and then when I glue that piece to that, those plywood pieces should glue to the back side of it, make it pretty solid, and give some good backing for those 3 screws. I like that it's foil back, so I don't have to worry about the adhesion of what the heck sticks to styrofoam. This side doesn't have foil, but it's got this, it's like a plastic, almost, oh, I don't know, plastic sheeting on the styrofoam. I don't like caulking to plastic. The only thing we've ever found that sticks to it is a product that's pretty spendy. It's called 758. It's made by Dow Sill. I'm not going to go that route. I think I'll probably just pull this material off and glue it with either wood glue, or I've got some hybrid urethane caulking. They call it Master Seal. It used to be Sonneborn NP 100, and I had done a test sample on the old styrofoam, but since I'm using new styrofoam, I figured I'd try it again on a new chunk. So I've got a little mock-up here gluing up the NP and the wood glue. Both the NP and wood glue stuck really good to the old dirty styrofoam, so I'm thinking it'll do the same on that. But you never know until you test it, make sure it's gonna bond properly. Last thing I want is to do all this work and then have the sealants not, do what they're supposed to do. So I'll go ahead and take the backing off the styrofoam, mortise out those 3 areas for the backing, plywood backing, and glue that outside panel to the board and keep trucking along. So I'm going to use a little heat, cut through this stuff, and then to recess it that 1/2 inch. We'll see how this works. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Once it gets glued to that outside panel, it should be fine. Seems to be working pretty good. See how it fits. A little deeper. Basically liquefies it. I think that's probably pretty good. That'll work. 2 more. That worked pretty good, so I'll go ahead and glue these in. Smear some caulking on the foil and the back side of that one panel. Put some weight on them, let it set up overnight, and install it tomorrow, I hope. Well, that's the plan. Don't want it real thick, because I don't want to make the wall any thicker than it needs to be. And I think you get the idea. So it's glued together. I'll let it sit overnight through 5 gallons of diesel on it. That should be enough to sort of put some weight on it. And now I'll probably measure out and cut the interior trim, actual trim board that's going to go over everything. Probably fit this. This is the actual panel that's going in. I cut it to fit. It was pretty square, other than this top corner. I made a little jig or a pattern to fit it in the opening itself. Then I traced it out on this board like that, and just cut it out with my little trim saw and jigsaw, and we'll dry fit it real quick here, make sure it fits. If it does, we'll throw some wallpaper on it and try to finish this thing up. I think that will do. This gap here I don't really care about. Like I said, the see what I'm talking about? A cup holder is going to screw here, and then I've got a little trim piece that's going to finish this up here, cover it up. So yeah, let's go ahead and wallpaper this. So like I mentioned earlier, I got this at the RV place where I bought the paneling, and it's just peel and stick wallpaper. No real pattern to it. You don't need to repeat anything. And like I said, it's not exact what I got, but it will be good enough for where it's going. So I just cut a piece big enough. Clean it up a little bit. Some little bit of alcohol. Get the sawdust and dirt off of it. It is sticky. It's real sticky. The paper's thicker than the actual wallpaper, or the backing is. It is sticky. Certainly don't want to stick it to something you don't want. Man, that is sticky. Now, I am not an expert at wallpaper. Tell. This just doesn't seem like it's getting enough pressure on it. So I think I found out why it was in the bargain center at the RV store. This paper, it didn't want to lay flat at all, as you can see. All the wrinkles in it. I'll take this little tucking tool And it takes out some of them, but like this big wrinkle right here, it's not going to come out. See if I want to put it in, or maybe go to plan B. I don't know. We'll see. I'll keep playing with it. It is a couple days later and several failures later. What I thought would be the easiest part of the whole project turned out to be the most pain in the rear end part of it. The pattern was good, and I thought it'd work out okay, but it just did not want to lay right. I'm sure it was an end of a roll from the factory, and there must be something wrong with it, because as you would lay it out and get it stuck, it would just start bubbling up on you. It just wouldn't lay flat. And this was the first attempt. Then I even enlisted the wife to help me with the second attempt, pushing while I'm pulling on it, and it still just wrinkled and bubbled up, and it did not look good. So I went to plan C, and I cut another pattern, and then I just painted it. And I went down and took a sample of the actual board that was inside the motorhome. They had a hard time matching it because it's patterned, so it's more or less just an off-white. And at this point, that's what's gonna do. So now I'm to the point of gluing that inside insulation panel that I replaced, then start gluing this interior panel on. Oh, it's been probably a week ago now when I was doing a little adhesion test for the wood glue and the NP100. So I'll set you up here in a stand and do a little pull test, see hopefully which one sticks better. So like I said, it's been about a week since I did these, and I just took wood glue, put it on both surfaces of the wood and the styrofoam, and then the same with the NP100. I'd say the wood glue sticks real good when it separates the material before it lets go of the glue. That's pretty good, and this did the same thing. So they both adhere, but I think I'm going to go with the NP100. It's still pliable, it's still flexible, whereas the wood glue, it just turns rock hard, like regular old wood glue does. And I think in a motorhome, since there's so much movement, I think I'll go ahead and go with the NP and spread it around on all the surfaces and get this thing glued up. So I caulked up the back side of this board, smeared it around, and this stuff is sticky, really sticky. It's real pliable. It doesn't cure super fast. It's not like you have to work real fast to get your work done. So that panel is done. I've got the inside of the wall here. Same thing has been caulked and spread. So I'll fit the panel in there. I've caulked those 3 holes that were penetrating through it, and I'll caulk the actual screws when they go back in from the outside. And that should seal those 3 screw holes from leaking. And I'll glue the interior trim board on, or the interior panel board, and trim it back out and hopefully be done with this little project. So I've got the panel in. I've got some boards putting some pressure on it until the sealant sets up. Just a couple pieces of plywood, some spacer boards, put some tension against the panel. I'll let that sit for a day. I'll probably go outside and put some shoring up on the outside of it, so it's got some pressure on the outside pushing in on it too. And finish that up. We'll be right back. And figured I'd show what I did on the outside. Just some boards and 2x4s braced off the wall, put some tension on it. And that should be about it. So it's the next day. Pulled all the boards off, vacuumed up in here a little bit, and as far as I'm concerned, this is done. Got the window trim back on, a little cup holder on. It's a shade light compared to the old stuff, but for where it is, I think it's fine. Put a little trim piece under it to hide the splice. And that takes care of this one. This project is done. So, what next? Well, wife has plans for these things, and I think it involves me doing some work. So we'll see what we can tackle when we get into this. See you on the next one.